How are you doing out there? It's Kiana Conley. I am your Los Angeles chapter executive director of the Recording Academy. I'm so happy that you guys are able to join us today on Facebook Live. We're going to have an amazing conversation, and I'm so thrilled that we're able to bring this conversation, which is so timely, to you right now as our nation and as our globe is changing. So as the influencers and leaders and culture of all kinds, we just want you, the music creators and members and professionals of our Recording Academy family, to know that what matters to you matters to us. And so it's my absolute joy, privilege, and honor to welcome everyone on Facebook Live, fans of music as well, from across the nation, to welcome music industry guests, and to welcome all of my panelists to care for the culture. But before we get started, I'd like to kick it off with a few words from our Los Angeles chapter trustee, Mr. John Legend.
Greetings, everyone. My name is John Legend, and I'm a current national trustee. And previously, I was LA Chapter Membership Committee co-chair. And when I was in the membership committee, it was really important for me that all of our voices were represented, all of the many diverse voices of the music industry. So within the membership committee, we set out to, in 2019, form what we've now titled the Rap, R&B, and Reggae Leadership Collective. This brain trust of Recording Academy members and elected leaders of the LA chapter music community offers a space within the Academy for our genre voices to make programming suggestions, target community engagement, and promote chapter leadership. So today's dialogue really reflects the many conversations and actions taking place by the Academy executive and elected leadership in support of our genre communities. I'm proud that when our membership committee was urged to respond to prominent mental health and wellness concerns within our communities, the Academy really listened to us, partnered with us, and quickly responded by creating this program. We've gathered music creators, executives, wellness experts, and community leaders who specifically represent or work with Black and Brown communities who lead the rap, R&B, and reggae genres. Today's virtual conversation is what we hope will be an open discussion about current issues impacting creators and executives in these genres. We hope it offers connective insight and sparks real and measurable solutions, ultimately encouraging strong wellness practices that we need right now. This current pandemic and racial injustice fight has continued to largely impact our genre communities. So thanks again to my friends at the LA chapter and our colleagues in the Rap, R&B, and Reggae Leadership Collective for this great family discussion. I'm really looking forward to learning together, growing together, healing together, and really having a great, important, and timely conversation right now. Thank you for joining us. Let's get it started.
Thanks, John. We too are looking forward to a very great conversation, an amazing conversation. And again, I just want to thank all of our panelists who you're going to meet shortly. But before I get to that, I would like to bring in my co-moderator, my co-host for the evening, my fellow executive director for the Washington, D.C. chapter, Mr. Jerry L. Johnson. Hey, Jay.
Hey, what's up, Kiana? How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited that we're here. Care for the Culture is, something we've been working on for about 6 months. And as you know, is sort of a leader for us here at the Recording Academy. Just the interest and making sure we're having the right impact within these genre communities has always been a priority. So any way that we can bring attention and focus to our music creators and professionals that we love so much and helping them, I'm happy we're able to do that. So thank you.
100%. And congrats to you and the team for putting this together. I know it's been a lot of work, a labor of love, but we're excited to be having this important conversation at this critical moment, not only in the music industry, but in the world. So thank you for including me. And with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. And our first guest. Our first guest is a Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and actor, and also a newly elected Los Angeles chapter governor, who happens to be a friend of mine also for about 20 years now. Let's welcome Major. What's up, Major?
Hey, Major.
How are you? Q and Jerry L. What's going on? Jerry L, did you mention we're Berkeley alum? I mean, hello.
Hey, I didn't want to lay it on too heavy.
Yeah, it's okay. Understood. Super excited to be here, ready for the dialogue, ready for the discourse. I think now is couldn't be a better time for us to have this conversation with all of the civil unrest and just a time this pandemic has caused us to really become more introspective and aware of what we need to do as contributors to our environment. So let's go.
Let's do it. Thank you, Major. We appreciate you being here. And we know Berkeley kids help make the music world go round. So we're always happy to have that moment.
Yeah, I like that.
Next up, we have the wonderful, the illustrious, and a true woman of the people, the California State Senator, Holly J. Mitchell. Thanks for joining the conversation today.
Hey, Kiana. Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you, and it's a pleasure. I'm in your state's capital today doing my work, but I ran off the state floor. Don't tell them I've made a break for it to join you. So I'm looking forward to participating in the conversation. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
So next up, we have the co-founder of the boutique management company and record label, Love Renaissance. And he's also one of the leading executive voices of R&B, rap music, and for the culture in general today. So please welcome Tunde Balogun.
Hello, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me.
What's up, Tunde?
What's going on? What's going on?
Good to see you, man.
Was I supposed to introduce myself a little more there, or we good?
Hey, listen, man, we're good.
I think it gave me an amazing introduction. I'll leave it like that.
There you go.
Thanks for being here today. We appreciate you for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And everything you've been doing for the culture off and on the stage. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shout out to our next person in the room, in the virtual room. She is a lifestylist, a branding coach, a media trainer, author, and motivational speaker. Her music industry clientele includes Mary J. Blige, Alicia Keys, Erykah Badu, Shine, Andra Day, Party Next Door, TJ, you name it, she's talked to them. She's helped them. So I'd like to bring it to our virtual room, Ms. Harriet Cole.
Hi, everybody.
Hey,
very happy to be here with you to participate in this, what I know will be uplifting and real conversation.
Great, thank you, Harriet.
Thank you. And so next up, when we're having these types of conversations, it's so important to have outside perspectives that are clinically trained to really give us some tools as we navigate these current times. And so we're excited to welcome licensed marriage and family therapist and healer and host of Shaping the Shift podcast, Ms. Thea Monier.
Can you see me okay? I'm here.
Gotcha.
Hi, yay. I'm so thrilled to be here and co-create these strategies and like really deconstruct this with you all. So I'm with everybody else. Let's go.
Great, let's keep it moving. So next we have Grammy award-winning singer, songwriter, and a wellness advocate. She's a mother and a friend, and she's Canada's own. Shout out to our friends and neighbors from the north, Ms. Melanie Fiona.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Yeah, that shout out to the north. Thank you so much for acknowledging.
Thank you, Melanie. And so next up, we have Grammy-nominated producer, songwriter, and the 1920 co-chair of the Recording Academy's Producers and Engineers Wing Steering Committee, Mr. Ivan Barrios. What's up, Ivan?
What's up, everyone? How's everybody doing? Really excited to be here, being a part of this great conversation. Like you guys are saying, this is very timely, and it's very important to have this, especially now, and having the Academy give all of us this platform to really talk about pressing issues is really important. So happy to be a part of this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Ivan. Next, I have up a Grammy-nominated producer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, artist, composer, actor, and co-founder of the production duo, The Interns. Also, hostess with the mostest. I'm gonna throw that in there. Co-sign.
Hello. I came in here really trying to just be cool, but I'm so humbled by the company that I'm in that I had to just start kind of prepping myself up like, oh, it's real. Oh, it's real. It's real kings and queens on here today. Coach, sit up. So I'm excited and I'm honored.
Thank you, Coach. And thank
we're
you for
excited.
being part of that committee. Yeah, thank you for being a part of the committee that helped to conceptualize this. So it's important for us to have you in the room to speak, for sure. Thanks for that.
Awesome. So next up, we have veteran radio and music industry executive, who's also known by most as the Connector. Please welcome William Fuzzy West.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
Good.
What's up, Fuzz?
Listen, I have a Grammy. I have 3 Grammys in my house, so I'm flossing one. It's not mine, but it's kind of ours. I'm sharing it with my lady, my old lady. I sound old school. Oh, my old lady. But yeah, it was a Grammy in the house. So yeah, Ricky Hughes, and I want to hit Thea with a Ashe.
Hey.
I love you guys already. I'm so excited. All right.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
ASCAP Song of the Year winning artist and songwriter, CEO of Woodworks Records, champion and breakout star of Netflix's Rhythm and Flow, and most importantly to me, Inglewood's finest, because I'm a Cali girl. I'm born and raised, and that's part of where I come from. So shout out to D Smoke.
Okay. What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
Beautiful.
Okay. It's a little delay, but hey, Fuzz, wait. It's weird because I've known you for so many years, but I didn't know you was William. So I feel like I'm meeting somebody.
Same here.
Oh, that government name cut through.
Same here. I'm like, nice to meet you.
Nice to
It
meet
looks good
you.
on checks. It looks good on checks.
But yeah, it's a pleasure to be amongst brilliant company and forward this conversation. So I'm here for it.
Thank you. For sure.
Awesome. And last, but of course not least, we have singer, songwriter, author, business owner of her own record label, Back Entertainment, and also 12-time Grammy nominee and Los Angeles chapter governor. Please welcome.
Let it see.
Rise. All rise.
I am so honored to be here. Jeriel, Kiana, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me yell at you for this. I am excited. Oh, thank you.
And thank you. Thanks to you all. Thank you, Jeriel, for those great introductions. I feel like the people are just as ready as we are. So let's jump in. You guys ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. So the next segment of our talk today is kind of looking at 3 different ways that we see care, right? Care particularly for these genres. So we're going to start off with a little bit of talking about how we care for the individual, and we'll go to, how we care for the individual, meaning music creators and professionals. Then how do we work together to help them care for their craft? And ultimately, how are we going to care for the culture as a whole? So my first set of questions are actually to Thea and to Harriet. I'd love, as the wellness experts on our panel today, to kind of hear from you and have you guys talk about, what are some of the personal wellness tools that you see that are really working for people as we're kind of current times.
I'll let Harriet go.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you, hailing from the East Coast. I'm in New York City right now, in Harlem. I've worked with artists for many years, and I can tell you something you already know. the most creative beings are often the ones who can be emotionally fragile, because it takes accessing that core space in order to bring forth their art. And at a time like this, when we have spent 3 months sequestered at home, going through all of the emotions that have come up, even before this month of uprising for social justice, people were going through a lot. I think all of us here and everybody else, and especially creative people, because the soul is open. And we have been processing. And then one of the realities that hit us cold in the face is that as we were working and figuring out what's important and how we might want to pivot, then we realized that a very important pivot hadn't happened yet. This a major shift in race relations and how we deal with systemic racism, right? So all of that is happening to all of us. And in this industry, there was already a lot of pain, and people were speaking their pain and also sometimes inoculating their pain. This industry is an industry that has suffered from drug and alcohol abuse for generations, since the beginning. And there are many indicators in the mental health community that will tell you that all of the things that bother folks mentally and spiritually are at an all-time high. And so there probably will be a whole lot created during this time, but also we will lose people during this time. And I think our job is to support, protect, and nurture people at this time. And that's what I've been doing in one way or another all my career. But I will tell you one other thing before I pause for now. Years ago, the record labels would say to me, and so I know to others, we are not trying to heal their pain. We want them in their pain because that makes good music. I was told I could absolutely not recommend therapy for an artist years ago, because if she's hurting, that music is flowing out of her and that's going to make us money. And that broke my heart. It is changing now. It is changing now. The industry is recognizing that it is possible to support artists and creators of all kinds where they are and still help them to nurture their craft and offer it to the world. And so to our doctor, perhaps you can offer to us, what are some of those things, especially now when people can't physically get to the doctor? What tools can they use?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that perspectives add so much, and it's so rich and speaks to the character and the heart of why we need to value creatives more. There are 3 words that you're going to hear me say repeatedly. The first is the biggest, is decolonization. And I'll go into that a little bit, and joy and pleasure. So it's hard for me to see particularly Black-bodied artists of any sort being fully happy and fully expressed and fully liberated in a colonized institution, in an institution that's designed for certain people to excel or be able to express outside of certain genres and certain people not to. And so when I say decolonization, I really mean like we can support them by supporting the decolonization of how we put out music, how we, like you were saying, how we market music, how we think about these artists as whole beings and not just, oh, they can only produce from their pain. They can produce great things from their joy, great things from their pleasure. And you brought up the issue of substance abuse, which the interesting thing about that in my work with artists is I have to point out to them that their creativity flows from the same place where that addiction forms, and that's in that sacral chakra, right? So what that says is, if they're not free to create the way they want in a way that's joyous and pleasurable, if there's something in there that blocks how they can create, we tend to have problems. There's going to be some way that comes out. And a lot of times that can be harm. So the first tool is really, this is a chance, because things have come to somewhat of a halt, to reevaluate and rethink how you want to express yourself to the world. And if the people around you are preventing you from doing that or supporting you in doing that, that would be a great place to start. And remember, you got into it because you enjoyed it. So let's protect that joy.
Yes, and I'd love to hear from some of our artists that I know really sort of take that time to invest in themselves from a place of wellness. Melanie, would you mind commenting on just some of the things that you've been doing, particularly during this time, and then even maybe before sort of the last 3 months?
You know, I would just like to say thank you so much to Harriet and Thea, because I think that as an artist and as somebody who's really shifted their focus in wellness in life and in my profession over the last few years, and that's just become such a great part of my purpose. It's so wonderful to know that there are such wonderful women and resources out there, because it is highly necessary as it is to have an entire team of personnel, tour managers, accountants, musicians, bands. This is really a part of the support team that needs to be available for artists. And I was getting very emotional listening to you guys say this, because too often we as artists, you're pulled in so many directions. There is a demand to feed yours and the egos of other people. There is a demand to show up and be on and to be ready at all times. And, that hesitation to say, I'm not doing so great today. I might need a minute. I don't know if I can make that. It comes with a great pressure that you're letting a whole system of things and people down. And I remember, my wellness journey of figuring out how to balance being a human and an artist in one was, I remember I had just come off tour with Alicia Keys. This was back in 2011. We had just done a world tour. It was amazing. I had an amazing time. I had come back. I was thin and I was very, very anxious and aggressive. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't even, understand what was going on. And I realized that I had depleted a piece of myself, burnt out. I was feeling tired. I wasn't eating well. I didn't have very good practices as far as wellness and health at that time in my life. And it affected my psyche. It affected my mood. It affected my health greatly. And so that was the point that when I really started to have to realize that there was a journey to wellness to balance this. I went to see a naturopath. I went to see holistic medicine, and they all said to me, they were like, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, I'm a singer, I'm a performer. And one doctor told me, he said, if you want to do this for a long time, you're going to have to make some different decisions about your lifestyle. And food was the first thing that changed for me. And then taking time right there, I had to tell my team, after coming off tour, I need 3 months to get my life together. I need to get on a proper diet. I need to get my life together. I need to sleep. I need to rest. I need to go to the doctor. I need to make sure everything is whole and healthy. And, that is a huge part of an artist's responsibility for themselves, is to communicate to their team to say, hey, I need this time. And, it may not be what everybody wants to hear, but it's what needs to be said, and it's what needs to be heard. I think that, it's very important that you set boundaries for yourself. And even in this time right now, setting boundaries for yourself as far as, what you are participating in online, what you're not, the anxiety of FOMO and not being able to do the lifestyle that you're normally used to having. And then also resting and taking solace in rest. Like, that is a huge component to your wellness. So, I think even back then, for my journey then to now in this quote unquote idle time, is really finding the peace in knowing that this is a graceful time to rest and refocus and re-energize and reassess the way you want your life to look like moving forward.
Oh, I love that. I love that perspective, because I think that's one of the things that is kind of going around in a lot of the creators and professionals you've been speaking with, just sort of their heads on like what to do. What am I supposed to do? And, some people have been quicker to come to that place, right? And understand that it really is about kind of taking the gifts from God, the universe, whatever you believe in, to stop, because literally the entire world is stopping with you. I know in conversations I've had with fellow panelists like Lettucey, we talked about that, you know, like how normally, you know, and then you can speak to it for yourself, but definitely like being on the road, like when would you have the opportunity as an artist at that level, you know, in her career to be able to stop for months and just sort of like assess things personally. So I would love to hear from also, you know, from you, Lettucey, or even potentially from Cosign or Fuzzy, because I know you guys have also been posting a lot about just how you've been maintaining your kind of like center through physical, you know, being active physically, and as well as Jeriel. So what are some of the other things that our creators on the panel are doing to center at this time?
Well, when
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, I was saying, I know Jeriel and I had this competition amongst each other. We talked about, you know, he's running, and I don't run. I'm a little older than Jeriel, but I've been on my Lance Armstrong without the dope biking. So I've been enjoying biking in the morning and doing like 30, 40-mile rides when I do get out early in the morning. And, you know, I that's my time, you know, I listen to podcasts or I listen to new music, whatever. And that's been my, like, keeping me staying out, get out the house, but still, you know, mask up and ride in the morning.
Lettucey, I think you were gonna comment as well.
For me, when this whole thing first happened, I just stopped and did nothing. I allowed myself to do absolutely nothing because I've been on the road. I needed to rest. And that call to action for artists to do things right away, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna sit in this, whatever this is, because I don't know where it's going. So I'm gonna rest and figure it out. I've been riding my bike. I finally have a bike after 8 years. And I'm riding my bike with my mask on, which is very hard. But it was so fun just to, and we don't go far. We just go enough to get outside. We need air. We gotta have air and get out. So writing has been good. Also journaling, also saying no, creating in a way, learning how to create in a box has been rewarding. And I'm learning the guitar, which is really good. So I'm actively doing things that fill me up with good things, not things that take away so much. Because we give so much. We give so much. And yesterday that's enough for me. You know,
I appreciate that perspective. We've been talking about, and we'll get to it later in the conversation, you know, about doing it for the culture. I don't want to be preemptive because we are going to ask that question. We're going to get to it. But I do think that right now what we're hearing is that, you know, it's important for creators and for music creators and creative professionals to sort of take ownership in their own responsibility to demand it not only for themselves, but of their teams, that they have to prioritize their wellness. And I think finding different ways of doing that, whether that be, you know, spiritual centering or kind of sort of devoted to the God of physical, you know, action, whatever it is for you, I think that it's important to do it. Sometimes it can, and in the past it has included some, you know, some drug and alcohol use, because I know there's where that allows for creativity, as was talked about earlier. But we'll get at, you know, what are some tools that people can do to sort of stay focused, you know, and kind of keeping themselves grounded as many things are coming at you from outside. But I want to a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Harriet.
I just want to add one piece, because what I'm hearing is wonderful, and it's from people who have reached a certain level. And I do a lot of work also with people in the rap world, many who are emerging, and I don't hear this. But what I do see is that the people in A&R at the labels who are working with artists, often in the rap world, are holding hands in a way like family. Like the job of the artist development people and anybody who's part of that team is often to be a lifeline. Because just about every young man I've worked with in the past 2 years was either about to be on trial or had just come off, or almost everyone, you know, I'm doing these video calls and they show me the gun that's in their waist, even though they're in their house, because I said, why is it in your waist? Because I won't have time to get it if somebody breaks in my house. So I'm bringing this up not to bring us down, but to say that because this is about all these genres, many of our artists are sharing their pain through their music, but when you're working with them, that vulnerability, and when you go outside to ride your bike, what's on that street? And I do not mean to be stereotypical. This is what they are saying to me. And I think our role as professionals in the industry, when we interact with them, including now, is to hold their hand. And I think many people have done that, have reached out when we've been quarantined, to reach out to them. Are you okay? And what can I do to support you from the heart? And so as we look across, many of the people just speaking now are successful and have the ability to get out of whatever an environment may have been, but there are many who are still in that environment, which is perfectly fine. I'm not judging an environment, but they may not be at the same, doing the spiritual practice that we're talking about, and may need some support, especially now. So I just wanted to include that in this discussion.
I definitely want to piggyback off of that. And thank you so much for sharing. I come from the west suburbs of Chicago, right? And it's crazy with that because you would think that was still Chicago because it still go down. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these rappers, these young brothers that you're speaking of, I work with them all the time. You know what I mean? And my job in this business is to be what somebody like the late LaShawn Daniels was to me. And that is to be living proof that you can love God and be successful in this business. You don't have to separate that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a whole life choice that I made, and the older I get, the more and more I feel that responsibility. So what's on autopilot for me as a music producer is the 808 and the drums, right? So I did Big Sean, excuse my language, ass, Rihanna birthday cake, Anaconda Don't birthday. So we know what that is. But it was about being able to tap into my inner voice and allow my soul to speak. So I just recently wrote a song called Kings. And that was really my first time because as creators, every song is an experiment. You don't know if people are gonna like it or not. You don't know if it's gonna bang, so this was me testing to see what if I put my whole soul into it? What if I thought about all the death that's happening? Pop Smoke being murdered in Los Angeles, Juice WRLD. Then I thought about my own father passing away. Then I thought about my sons. Kings are falling every day and kings are rising just the same. But when will we know who we are? I see your light, you are my star. So now also realizing as a music producer, I can't speak to the world through just kicks and snares. I got to put my lyrics on it. Beats don't go number one, songs go number one, Marco. So I had to tap into what my voice was. So now with the state of a pandemic and the blanket being ripped off of racism in the United States, we got to talk. We got to talk. We got to say it. We got to bare our soul. That's what soul music is about. You got to tap in. The little light, fluffy stuff, trap music, shoot up, bang, it don't hit the same during these times. It don't hit the same. You on your workout playlist, that riding, you don't want to hear that. You want to hear James Brown say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. It's a different vibe right now. So yeah, don't get me started, guys.
No, we there. That's where we all are.
The strings. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, but the platform that you're asking for, we have not had that in a long time. We have not had James Brown and a Marvin Gaye. They've been there, but the business of music did not create a platform for artists such as that. They're there.
So this is what
give that music, but we haven't heard that.
So I have to shout out Spotify.
Music for the last 4 years.
I have to shout out Spotify in this moment because they took my song and put me right on the Black Lives playlist. Black Lives Matter.
Doing it now.
So
it's
now on one
now.
platform, I'm looking at James Brown, I'm looking at Donny Hathaway, and I'm looking at Cosign all in one moment because we're here now. You know what I mean? It's an urgent time. That's the word. It's urgency.
My point is, I wish it was here before now.
Right.
I
Well,
wish
some
it was here.
artists were doing
I wish we've always been here. I'm
Right.
saying the business platform should have been there for us. Like they were there with Marvin, we have so much music we can go back to, and they were given the opportunity to be seen and heard. We're just now realizing that we have to make that platform.
Absolutely.
Well, and keep it 100, they had to fight for
upload
that.
your music. You can upload your music. There's no more distribution.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Craziness. You can upload your music. Cats is going from their bedroom. You look at somebody like a Lil Nas X in Old Town Road. He just got the beat off YouTube, said what he had to say. So we have these opportunities now to just get it out, you know.
Cosign. Let me add this also to dovetail from what Lettuce was saying. I've seen memes going around on Instagram from several music industry executives, you know, saying, "Where's our fight the power? Where's our revolutionary anthem? You know, artists get to work." And I think that it's an unfair burden. It's an unfair burden on the artists, because I think what's happening is there should be a certain level of accountability that to fall on the industry. And I think the industry is so exploitative and has figured out ways to monetize from the content that a lot of artists are creating, which, you know, I'm not here to advocate for either one side of, you know, the content being made, but it doesn't really align with social responsibility. No, and I think when you're looking at these times that we're living through, and I think I brought that up on a thread that Fuzzy and I are on, and I was saying, you know, do we go back to, you know, making the same music we were making? And not saying you should get rid of the music that's been the dominant music in terms of the music economy, but I think that there's no balance. You know, at one point there was balance. You had disco, but you also had Marvin Gaye and Donny Hathaway and Stevie Wonder. You had more mainstream records that address certain parts of, you know, the broader mainstream culture, but you also had these records that were anchored in something that was uplifting. And look, they've outlasted the lifespan of those artists. I was watching the Five Bloods the other day, and those Marvin records, and I was telling Lettuce this last night, those Marvin records just hit totally different.
And the acapella hit different.
In June of 2020, those records sounded entirely different, but they resonated. So I think that to say that, you know, from a commerce standpoint, you know, it's not worth investing in those artists, I think you're kind of doing a disservice to the fans and to the culture. Because I think right now you have to empower those artists and allow those voices to permeate and actually speak to the people, heal the people, you know, inspire the people, uplift, just like Cosign did with the song King. So I think we're not investing in our artists. And when I say we're not investing in our artists, we're not investing in voices that can speak and be the pillars of the culture. You know, aside from the Kendricks and the J. Coles, we don't have that many artists that can be those figureheads and luminaries like that.
But you know, I would say, just from my perspective, and I am the odd woman out as the old head, as the old head and the policymaker. You know, as I listen to you all, it resonates with what we're experiencing, recognizing that the status quo will never be the same again if we don't want it to be.
That's right.
And so this is an opportunity for us to create the kind of culture, the kind of business environment, from my perspective, the kind of policy and laws that we know meets the needs of our community. Yes. So it's going to be on us. If we take this time to, and then you all have had the luxury to be able to be safe at home at a safe home. You've had the luxury to rest and get your mind, I won't say right, but in a different space. And so what will we do with that going forward permanently? You know, I have to say, from the policymaking perspective, we are doing that. I see the crack in the door and I am running full steam ahead. Yesterday on the Senate floor here in California, we passed the bill to repeal Prop 209. We are going to pass a bill that talks about reparations. We are doing police accountability and criminal justice right sizing also, but we're also talking about, quite frankly, economics for Black people. You know, I am hearing from people who are concerned. I appreciate Harriet's perspective, talk about this one group. And there's a group behind that group, like the kids who are in music school, who are wanting to be all of you and have had the rug pulled out from under them. Patrice Rushen at the USC School of Thornton, she's chair of their popular school of music, happens to be my god sister. And she's like, what do I tell these Black and brown young people who have this vision, who are investing tens of thousands of dollars, who are now it's this online experience, not quite sure about the future of the industry and what their role will be in it. And so a lot of people are on shaky ground, but I think we have an opportunity to reframe, recast, and empower ourselves in a different way.
Thank you so much, Senator Mitchell. I'm glad that you were able to jump in, because one of the things I really wanted for you to do and being on this panel is to do what you've done in this first half, which is really listen, right? Hear what the concerns are of the people that are in your communities, hear what their needs are, hear what their perspectives are, but also for them to hear from you, and to also kind of like have a little bit of a moment, if you guys don't mind, for us to talk about that from outside of just our scope, right, of the music craft or the music culture. What are some things that how can we be supporting those legislators like Senator Mitchell, who are really people of, legislators of the people, right? And who are understanding the same issues you guys are presenting, and those who you represent, those who will come behind you. What are some of the things what do you need from her? What do you need from legislation all across the nation? So I would love for you guys to give her that information and share that with her right now.
Oh man, we need these publishing deals. Look at ma'am, we need Senator, and just thank you so much. What I wanted to say, Miss Senator, because what you said, first you gave a deference to your age, but Queen, you look incredible. Your energy is out of this galaxy. But you said that you were running. And that's the part you're running. There's a sense of urgency. This is the first year after 400 years, right? We've just in 400 years. So now 2020 is year one, and y'all want to play. We want to play and not recognize it's a moment. People is throwing that money around. So from a publishing standpoint, your publishing is your soul, okay? So what they do is, as soon as you show any inkling of talent, boom, here goes a publishing deal, and we're going to put all of these stumbling blocks in this long, elaborate contract that's going to keep you here. You know what I'm saying? No matter how long. And so publishing deals can't be longer than 7 years, 5 to 7 years, period. I don't care what it is, because the way you can just sit there and throw whatever money, that these kids are broke, they're talented, we need some money, we first generation trying to get it, so we need whatever money you got for us, but you're going to lock us in and take half of our earnings for forever, for a decade? You're going to say that the reason we can't get paid is because this album wasn't licensed? What does that have to do with me? I did my work. I did the beat. I did the song. I turned in the files. Why can't I get my publishing? So we got to crack that open, because that's where a lot of the funds and the money's at.
I'm going to go ahead and second that. Too. Because that's an experience that we share in common, right? I've been in the same publishing deal since I was 19 years old. I'm 34. So, but I think it extends beyond publishing. I think all of these large institutions, these predatory institutions and companies that leech off of our culture, right? At this time, we're starting to, everybody's like unpacking what is white supremacy, right? And if we consider music to be like the water source of our culture, it's been poisoned, right? Because as soon as you introduce that interest, that just to make a profit interest, then slowly it starts to introduce an element that's not true to us. And that's happened gradually over the course of years until it's gotten to a point where we're so far from ourselves that as a culture, we're super divided. As coming up when I was in high school, I used to love everything that came out of Hidden Beach, right? Amongst other things, right? So that was like the last little nugget of, these timeless artists. Like who lied to these executives and told them that timeless music is not lucrative, right? But the weird thing is they know it's lucrative in the long term, so they'll still lock you into the publishing deal, but they won't put it, you know, in the forefront so that it's both helping people. It creates its own audience, right? So once people are educated and uplifted by the music, then you have this long-term audience who wants to hear that. So it's not just the publishing companies, the record companies. Like, if we're going to be honest, we're going to identify that nothing happens on accident. There are real conversations in real rooms where they discuss the science of signing artists and putting out artists. And that needs to be challenged, because the music is one of, if not our most powerful tool in doing so much, in healing so much that's going on within us first, and then outside of our culture, you know. And I still have to echo some of the other sentiments, you know, that Melanie was talking about, just eating healthy. You know, that's one of those things that I do. You know, me and Fuzz, we ran into each other out on the beach. You know, he was going one way on his bike, I was going the other way, you know. But these practices are super important, and we can continue to promote them. But we have to, legislation plays a key role, because Black people, we've made major strides and then took huge setbacks, because there are people who still have conversations where they intentionally attack our culture and our people at their core. And we don't have to get too revolutionary and talk about Tulsa and all that stuff, but that exists, you know. And we really got to deal with that, and force people first to tell the truth about who they are. Like, once they start acknowledging that you are that person or their descendant, then, you know, we got to deal with that accordingly. But I think that's the role of legislation. The beauty of it is, this moment is creating the public that needs to get behind it, even in the artistic community. But I'm with labels first, though. Get on
it is, but I have to say that even though we're running for the door, I would encourage you all, to those of you in California and you care, to look it up. You can look it up on my Facebook yesterday. So even though we have the opportunity, you know, I thought my head was going to explode yesterday as I'm defending to a group of learned people the value of affirmative action. And, you know, Prop 209 25 years ago was about a Republican governor who was going to run for president, who needed to empower and embolden white men to get him elected. And so while we have the opportunity, we still need to be clear that white supremacist ideology is very real. And when we begin to poke the bear, you know, it comes out. I talked about the fact that, you know, we don't have this conversation about race enough as a country, because people understand that if they're going to share power or give power to people who have been held back for so many years, somebody's going to have to lose something. And they're not ready to have that conversation. And so it's hard, even in a progressive state of California.
Well, they're being forced to have the conversation, Senator. Like right now, there is a mandate. The conversation has to be had. Thanks to Gen Z, that is a generation of fight me. I'm gonna fight back until I see all the liberties that I believe that I deserve. But you know, most of us here on this panel represent the millennial space. And for those that don't realize, millennial goes up to 42, so you're good. So, at the end of the day, we come from seeing two different worlds. We saw the generation before us that was the beneficiaries of our grandparents' fight, not our parents' fight, our grandparents' fight. And so they were able to see integrated schools and things like that and think, well, that's progress. And so they started to become a little more comfortable, unless they were privileged to have parents that were more awakened to, we're not anywhere close to being done. And we also have this space where we realize that we deserve more, and it's well overdue. And so we're in this middle, and we're mandating this space for people to have to hear us. Right. And that's what I think all of us, I can point out the creatives on here that are literally taking the responsibility. And to clear up something with Ms. Harriet, while we appear more established, let me make something clear. You got some more emerging folk on here. We are not as arrived as we appear. And so
Isn't that always true?
We do share in a lot of those difficulties and sacrifices and hardships that the emerging artists, you know, are dealing with as well. But I think because we're awakened to the issue, we have then accepted the responsibility to be a part of the solution in educating these communities and these disenfranchised segments that need to know more about what the truth is, what they're entitled to, what are alternatives to having to think you got to stay strapped in order to protect yourself. There are other ways of approaching this thing. And I want to laud Melanie for something she said about making sure that you communicate with your team the importance of that self-care and that need to pause.
Yeah.
But while we do that, we have to make sure we're building teams that are actually going to listen to us making that plea, make us, you know, that are actually going to hear us. Because I've been in a situation where they're like, that's all good, but let me get something. We got to get this going real quick. You'll pause after.
Right.
And now you're broken, and we have an industry that has capitalized on our brokenness. They capitalize on our brokenness, and enough is enough. We're putting our foot on the neck of injustice, and we're not going to stop until we see a difference.
And I think you're 100% right. And to be honest, I would love to hear from Tunde around some of these things, especially about, you know, taking care of your artists, taking care of your teams.
Right.
Obviously, he has artists who are at the forefront of R&B. And I think, you know, as we segue into sort of care for the craft and the creativity of the culture, as an executive, I know you probably have a lot of art in the can from your roster and things that are being created, masterpieces that are probably waiting to come out knowing you. So we'd love to hear you chime in on some of these things as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things I would say. I even took notes because I want to address a lot. Because I have a different perspective because there are creatives and stuff on here. So I'm on, and I'm very transparent. I have a label, a management company, a publishing company, and everything. People, once again, transparent, like, damn, you have a lot. And I'm just like, one thing that's important in our community that we don't have, I think, is the sharing of information and the education. I think that's the root of all of our problems. And let me tell you why. Cosign, knowing what you know now with your deal, if somebody would have told you that if you would have had the basic information, you probably would have not done that deal or negotiated that deal differently. Kind of like how now, I forgot the law, but I know when you have a credit card and you have interest, they tell you how much money you are going to have to pay over a certain time if you have this interest. And you may be like, no, I'm not going to do that because I actually know how much money is going to actually go out. So that's why I said, like, you know, the small practices of in our community, we cannot keep letting these artists sign contracts without no lawyers. I've had artists tell me, I'll sign. No, because you don't even understand what you're signing. And a year from now, you're not going to be happy. So fully understand what's in your agreement and come back to me with what you exactly want. Because, you know, on my end, like, we've invested a lot into our company and our brand and stuff. So if we're negotiating and I feel like I hold my worth, and if you feel like you hold yours, we're going to come to a mutual understanding. I'm going to appreciate and understand what you want and appreciate and understand what I want, and we'll be fine. When it comes to the point of, like, you think I need you, you think you need me, it starts off rocky. So I think education is first, because when you have that, a lot of the gray area gets alleviated. And then, you know, even with people signing agreements, you know, I've been very vocal about basic stuff for artists and employees. Like, when you go get a loan for a house, you go through the whole process, orientation and everything. No 18-year-old should be getting $1 million check and have no orientation, no financial literacy. Where's your healthcare? And most artists don't even know what SAG-AFTRA is. I don't even know where that money fully goes into. So I have to ask somebody, hey, what's this? Go find somebody, apply for health insurance, do that. That should be part of the packet you get when you first sign. And that's like a lot of stuff we're talking about is like basic things that I was telling an executive, I was like, you know, in my eyes, everything that's going on, it's a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. But simple things of like, artists and creators are pissed at y'all because they feel like you guys just don't give a fuck about their well-being, period. Like, besides the music and turning in, I was like, if y'all created a retirement system for artists and people where it doesn't nothing to do with their recoupment and kind of nothing. Like, if artists can get 5 to 10K a month for his retirement, just something in case something goes wrong, like, they would appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's stuff that we're gonna start as a pilot program of stuff like that. We launched our mental health division a few months ago, and I'm gonna explain to you why. I have 2 artists, Black, who is very quiet, who is very reserved, and I have another one, Summer Walker, who is loud on social, but quiet, but loud on social, but still a very reserved person. And she had a very public issues last year or whatever. You know, public perceives me as a woman, but like, that's literally like our little sister that will protect regardless. And you know, like, this is new for her. I think we have to realize, like, this isn't when I was growing up, because I'm 32, watching artists come up. Artists don't have 5 years to develop. You have we found Summer, we had Summer, she made amazing music, we dropped it, and 6 months later, she's all over the internet. You don't have time to develop. You're developing in front of the whole world at that point. So, you know, with that, even we had to learn, you know, she wasn't ready to go through the whole therapy thing. So we went out and hired a therapist to consult with us, to tell us, yo, what are triggers, what are this, what are that. And she taught us how to effectively deal with her. And that's just us learning. I didn't know anything about mental health or anything before. And I was like, let's go and try out. And then that pushed us into myself and my 4 other partners, because we've been having some success, new money, new everything. We were like, yo, we've been friends for 10 years. We should probably go see a therapist and like hash everything out. And we went through a month of therapy and it changed our lives, communication and everything. We were like, hey, this may be good for the team and the employees.
So how do you get other entities to model that behavior? Because that's clearly a solution, but you're one of few that's actually doing it this way, which is necessary.
Yes. You have to be the model, and you have to hold people accountable, and you have to push them. Like, now I'm going to, since we're the pilot, now we're going to deal with Interscope and try and expand it. But I've been wanting to do this, but you got, when you do with this, you guys know the legalities are crazy. Somebody will sue us because the therapist told them something. So it's just like, we literally told our lawyer, like, don't worry about it. If something comes up, we'll deal with it, because we're so passionate about it. I was like, if somebody sues us for providing them therapy, so be it. Like, I'll take that L for the betterment. But yes, it's, once again, it's a marathon, not a sprint, because you sometimes have to do stuff to force people to do it. I'm like, oh, because no, sometimes people want to be a part of the cool thing. Therapy now in the Black community is becoming okay. We all know, like, if I go, I'm Nigerian. If I go tell my grandma in Nigeria I'm doing therapy, she's like, are you crazy? Like, what's wrong? Like, it's something that we have to almost detach ourselves from our family, because it's not a thing. So it's like, I think there's so much stuff we have to work through as people like us. We're going to have to, like, be leaders and push through. And by no means do we know everything, but it's like, you know, I told you, I'm like, hey, like, the best way to perfect something is to try it out and fail. So you know, that's kind of how we move forward, and you know, that's what we've been up to.
Thea, what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely want to, there's a quote that, because this is amazing. This conversation is brilliant. And I'm a strategist, so I'm like writing down strategies, like cosign. There's like, I'm hearing mentorship. I'm hearing legislation that protects young artists from exploitation. I'm hearing mental health consultants for these labels. Like, these are actual strategies that you all have already laid out. Melanie, you brought up boundaries. Like, how do we empower people to have good boundaries? And it sounds like early intervention is super key to this, right? Like, them taking arts out of schools and art teachers out of schools in these urban areas. There could have been a component in there that just taught us about the industry. If this is something that people are going to be aspiring to, we have plenty of people who can go visit these schools and talk to them about, let me put you up on game. Like, you know, that is a real strategy. But there's a quote I want us to sit in for just a second. And it's a book called Fresh Water. And I am not going to attempt to the name because I don't want to mess it up. But it's called Fresh Water. And there's a quote where she says, "I am the source of the spring. All fresh water comes from my mouth." They say that. And I think at the core of this is exploitation, because we have an underdeveloped sense of value by the time we hit these industries, which is rooted in the white supremacy that we've had to endure before we even step at the door of these companies, right? So they determine the value. And you have to remember, when we're talking about intergenerational trauma, we're talking about historic trauma, right? We're talking about people who came to this country and weren't allowed to own themselves as human beings, right? There's something in the fabric of American institutions and businesses that says we own you almost as soon as it happens. And so I do think there's language and implementation that could be done really early to decolonize and reverse the damage done there by really helping. Like that model you talked about, Tunde, is beautiful and brilliant. And I will be pushing for that as well. But I also want to say, I get frustrated with the stigma about Black people in therapy, because this is what I say to Black people about therapy. You right to fear it, and you have a legit historic evidence reason to be suspect of this brand. You can demand of mental health, and I demand of mental health, that it expand to include our value system and our traditions. Part of the reason we fear it is because we are going to be viewed abnormal when the lens of this practice is white, right? So if your assessment tools and your treatment tools within mental health are normed on some family in Iowa, that does not relate to me here in Inglewood, California. I cannot, that cannot measure me. So we need more Black mental health practitioners to actually continue to challenge the mental health field, or to just say, like, our values, our ancestral practices, our spiritual practices. I had someone tell me, well, here we're therapists, we're not shaman. I said, well, I'm a shaman and a therapist.
Right.
I don't need to, I do all of that, right? So we need to expand it so that our people won't fear. They'll see us and they'll see these stones, whatever, and they'll be like, come on in, baby, right? But if I have to go in and therapy looks white and the model is white, and even the practitioners are taught through a white lens, it's not, I don't like when we blame ourselves for not going in. We have a historic issue with medical apartheid. That same mental health system once called us deviant. So we have to earn back the trust in the mental health field, and we have to expand and demonstrate and show and prove. And then we can say, we are expanding for you so that you can come into this space.
I'm so glad at one point, I'm so glad you said that.
Go ahead, Tunde.
The reason why myself and my partners did it first before Introduce It, because it was a show and prove thing of like, hey, and we were very vocal. Like, I have interviews saying myself and my partners did therapy and it helped us out. Like, we even did like communicate with our club. We flew in all of our employees to LA and we did like a discommunication session where we're like, don't look at us as your boss. Like, we're humans, let's just communicate. And just small stuff like that, when you break down, everything helps, and it just helps everybody work easier. Employees, artists, everything. And you see that you get more, because you said that people being like, make people sad and everything. I know when my artists and my employees have a clear head, they literally even do more than their job.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, Tunde,
this is so important.
Tunde, it's really cool that you assisted your artist. Because Summer Walker, when she opened the door, she said out loud for us all, for all artists to say, I'm exhausted.
Right.
I
don't have it all together.
That is brave and bold, and we were all of us were like, yes, thank you, because it's okay to say, I need a break and I need help, and I'm sorry I can't give to you right now. That was so powerful, and you assisted her. So I wanted to point that out. That artist made a jolt for us. And
yes, amazing.
I just appreciate her transparency with it and how it was handled. And I'm glad, because we're told to just work in my era and get it done and finish it and knock it out no matter what. I've sang with a broken arm. I've done whatever, you know, to get the job done. Because in R&B, we don't have the luxury to sit down for a minute. We have bills to pay. We're still figuring it out all the way to the end of our lives. I'm tired of us, especially in R&B, working our butts off and then not taking care of this part and this
tour
part.
till you die. That's what Black says. He's like, yo, tour till you die culture. And I'm just like, because usually majority of my problems with my artists, when they call me just mad for no reason, they're on tour. Tour is literally the worst. Traveling is the worst thing for artists. It's terrible.
Yeah,
there should be literally
there and smile like it's great.
One of the first things we did is we hired a crystal healing and meditation coach on Summer's tour for the whole staff and her. And literally the person flew in every other week and like had sessions, and people, that was their hour to check out. And even that helped. So it's small things to implement that don't cost much or take too much time that helps everybody out. So
they're way more effective.
I want to share one thing about that crystal healing and about healing in general is that, you know, even for me, I remember I went through a really just traumatic, very like large changes in my life after I put out my second album, and there was like very highs and lows. In fact, I'd just come off the Grammys with CeeLo and everything was high, and then there was an influx of things going on in my personal life, and I literally was carrying so much trauma and anxiety from all the change of high and low that my voice left. And I literally went to several doctors who were like, is there something wrong with my vocal cords? I can't sing for more than 30 minutes. What's going on? And I had to really realize and recognize that the suppressed trauma, the anxiety, the disappointment, the expectation, the demands, the stress, I was all holding trauma in my throat chakra, and it literally attacked my vocal cords and I could not sing. And it was a terrifying time in my life. And so that's why this conversation of wellness is so important. That's what, you know, led me to find alternative methods of healing. And whatever words and things I was suppressing, things I was unhappy with, I had to get it out. And in going through, you know, holistic healing, as far as crystal healing, Reiki, energy healing, acupuncture therapy, I was able to release this trauma that had taken hold of my gift. And, you know, my gift being traumatized directly affects my ability to live and make a living. So it's a whole encompassing issue that it's like a domino effect. And so that's why wellness is so important, you know, even just to piggyback off of some of the things that people talking about, the contracts and the legislations, the amount of heartbreak you have to face when you realize something you've created is not yours. You know, when you really realize the demands that you have to be on the road just to make money, because that music that's getting spun on the radio or played, you can't live off of that, because somebody's got to recoup a big bag before you can live. So you got to exhaust yourself on the road, you know, and like you said, Led, especially in R&B. So, you know, I mean, it really is, it's all interconnected. And again, like back to everything, the legislation, to the contracts, to the emotional effect that has on you, to the psyche, it's all interconnected.
Can I add to what Melanie said real fast about that throat chakra? You know, for most of y'all, you use your throat a lot, and the throat is the seat of authority. What the throat says becomes law, right? So for your throat to get attacked is like feeling like you lost your authority over your own life. Now, if you don't have a therapist that has integrated practices or is willing to bring in Afro spirituality, willing to bring in chakra healing, Reiki. I work with a team of people. Like I know people. I'd be like, oh, but I also train myself to know that, so that I'm not sitting here wasting Melanie's time on take this medication for anxiety, do this, do that. If that's necessary, that's necessary. But the reality is there's a lot of things the body's already telling us that's in ancestral medicine, in alternative healing, that white supremacy has said is not valid. So if you're going to a therapist or dealing with a therapist, look for one who, like I said, is decolonizing the practice. Like it has to be able to be inclusive of that, because I would have sent you to my Reiki practitioner as soon as I knew your voice. As soon as I knew.
Well, family, this is incredible. And obviously, we could have an entire conversation about mental health separately. And obviously, that was a part of this and a critical part of this conversation. Therapy is needed. Obviously, the stigma there in our culture is driven by fear. And because it's not easy, once you get in there and they begin to pull back the layers of who you are, what you've experienced, especially what you carry and the responsibility as a creative, it's not easy. So shout out to Tunde, obviously, for what you've pioneered in our business and how you are destigmatizing that for the culture, for creatives, for labels, managing up and teaching these established organizations how to care for their creatives. It's incredible.
Thank you.
That. I think what I'd love to hear from some of the creatives right now on the phone and on this Zoom is how you are changing this moment into your art. You know, co-sign a little bit earlier. You talked about how, you know, you produce songs like Anaconda. You produced, you know, the other ones that you mentioned. Great records. You know, huge smash hit records. But then you turned the corner and wrote a more introspective song. D-Smoke. I think in general, you're just such a prolific and thoughtful artist. So I'd be really curious to hear how, as creatives, you all are taking this opportunity, taking this quarantine, taking the unrest in the world, and how you plan to now use your art. You know, obviously, there. I love what Lettucey said earlier. She had to sit in this a little bit before she felt like she had to jump out and do something. I think it was important. That's an important thing that, you know, you're not responding to the pressures of what's going on, but you're really allowing this moment to sink in and then be creative. So I'd love for any of you all to jump in with maybe some of what you're working on and how this moment has impacted you creatively.
I definitely jump in and say song equals conversation, and music is high level messaging. So again, this is an opportunity to let your soul speak. And it's crazy because for me, you know, I'm not the artist that's gonna put out a song and then be on my IG live singing ever so gently with the keys. That's not the type of artist I am. But I am gonna put out a song and then have a conversation called King's Convo. And yesterday I had the MVP of quarantine, DJ D Nice. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what it is. These kind of conversations are allowing us to build in a way that we haven't been able to build before. And it starts with the music. And I had to tell my team that, and they didn't all the way understand it. Wait a second, cosign. So you want to be the artist, so you actually want to sing and rap yourself, but you usually did the production, bop, bop, bop. Yeah, guys, trust me on it. You got to trust me on it. And so what that is, you know, for me, I lost my mother when I was 20 years old. I did 2 years at Florida A&M. I moved back to Chicago. My mom had pancreatic cancer, and I lost her after my sophomore year. So at 20 years old, I had to trust my instincts and trust myself in a way that I never had to trust before. If I knock over the cup of Kool-Aid, mama not going to wipe that up for me. Marco's got to get up and take care of that. And so us as creatives during this moment, you have to trust your voice and your instincts. And when we keep tapping on ancestors, you got to, that Holy Spirit that's reminding you that when you are in a situation and you don't know, because this contract has 200 pages in it, you don't know what's wrong with it specifically, but you feel that something's wrong. Trust that. That level of discernment is what's going to lead you, and push it in the music. Because again, there's a level of fulfillment that you get when you create music, right? There was a level one time where, you know, I wanted my song to come on at 1 o'clock in the morning when the real DJ come on and the bottles come out. That's what I wanted. I wanted that moment in the night. Well, guess what? Ain't no clubs no more. Ain't no clubs right now. That's really dangerous right now. So now what I named Kings is audio healing. It's all, send this to a king real quick. When you drive in your car, you in that day, you have an opportunity to soothe. And so just maximize on that moment. Maximize on that moment, creatives.
Major, you're another one as well. I mean, I don't want to, and all of you, every artist on here.
So with that, I love what Cosign was saying. It was also connected to a conversation that I had with Lettucey the other day when we were talking about not moving in haste, because there is an urgency for things to, for change to come now. but it's not an urgency for every single creative just to throw out stuff. We've got to be responsible with what we put out there. Oftentimes when we see trend, we chase trend, but trend is generally a copying of something that is already responding to a need. So if you're chasing something that's already responding to a need, you're leaving your need unmet. And so each of us as creatives, we have a purpose to respond to a specific need in the earth. And there's a lot of crying happening. And I would encourage all of us as creatives, and something that I've been doing is trying to be still, to listen for the cry that I hear and respond to that, because there's enough space. We're all necessary. It's not going to be just one song that's just going to do it. Because at the same time, change is going to come, what's being played. They were also playing Marvin Gaye at some point. They were also playing I'm Black and I'm Proud at some point. And so those things can happen simultaneously, and all of them respond to the needed cries of the earth. And so for me, something that me and Legacy were talking about was that frequency, trying to find that frequency and tap into that space, that it be true. Because at this time, I'm not begging for artists that have not been awakened to the need in the earth to do anything. I don't care how popular you are. I don't want you speaking on behalf of the culture if you are not educated on what you're speaking about, because it's such an important time, while all people are listening and all eyes are watching, that those that take that platform be as informed as possible, so that we can make certain that the educated information is what arrives to the confused and to the objectifiers, or to the capitalists and the maximizers of our struggle. So I got some songs. I'm really excited about that. I thought they were supposed to come out at certain times, but we serve a divine, orchestrator that does all things well. But yeah, I'm just trying to be very sensitive and not rush a thing, and remember that pace is grace at this time.
Right. So what we're talking about really is what your responsibility is to the culture.
Yeah. You just went mute, bro.
Sorry about that. I hit the space bar on accident. D Smoke, definitely want to hear from you on this as well, and what you feel is the responsibility for some of the creatives in this moment to the culture.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for my time as a teacher, because it just gave me an awareness of who's listening and what it's doing. Like I could see I could guess what my students were listening to by how they acted or who they saw themselves becoming in class, right? So to me, for the artists that, because I think there's a certain degree of privilege that goes along with knowing the answers to what the next steps are in the movement like this. We have to, I have to have been afforded a college education to have some experience in trying to change admissions policies at UCLA to reverse Proposition 209 back when I was in, or at least change it to comprehensive review at UCLA. Like that's my personal experience. So when people are marching and now it's popular, it's like, okay, this will produce this amount of change, but beyond that, there's another conversation, right? But all that is based on my privileged experience having gone to UCLA. So the grace that we offer other artists is like, all right, we don't extend the responsibility to you to try to give us the answers. It's not so much answers, but what we hold everybody accountable to is being honest in the art, and by being honest, you can speak from your perspective. There's nobody that can tell me about my perspective. They can't tell me about my experience, right? And we're all experiencing something common. So if I talk about what quarantine is doing to me, if I talk about, what it means to witness people in the streets fighting for, I don't even like to use the word equality, fighting for what's right, then I'm certain that gives somebody license to be honest with themselves. And that's healing within itself, because you got kids who aren't even familiar with their own inner voice, because they're overstimulated by all the imagery that they're seeing, all of lies that they've been sold through marketing. You know, let's not forget that they live in food deserts. So the chemicals that they have pumping through their veins, literally, as they sit in schools or go throughout their day, it's just a rush, you know. So, but when we have honest music, like for example, when me and Sir did the song Let Go, and it's not a prescription of what needs to happen next. It's really me speaking to how I've been affected by what's going on, and with the hopes that somebody else is like, okay, I'm not crazy, right? Because once you remove that, people can be kind to themselves and be like, all right, I'm gonna allow myself, one, the room to feel. It's cool to feel. You can do all of the proactive, you know, health practices, and you can meditate, exercise, eat good, rest, and still feel, and that's okay. You know, I think sometimes people are so hard on themselves that they're like, I'm feeling bad, I'm doing something wrong. Like, nope, just endure that, and you're not feeling that by yourself. So I think that's the power of the music. When you're honest, then people can identify with it. I know people that are like, man, I thought it was just me. And, you know, I come from a background also, my parents are ministers. So it's always the goal to have people not feel isolated in what they're doing. You know, that's like the power of your testimony, is that other people have the same experiences. So that's, you know, there are some artists who have that privilege of being able to say, hey, you know what, guys, this strategy works. I've studied these movements. I know where to go. You know, I have a little bit of that, but I don't know it all. And when I do know what I do know, I offer. But when I don't, I'll still offer my experience from an honest standpoint without trying to embellish certain elements and dust other parts under the rug. Like, I'm from Inglewood, but if I'm saying, yeah, I'll shoot them up, take all your money, and that's it, without saying, like, I lost a homie to this stuff too, and, you know, it's a whole lot of hurt that I still deal with, then I've done my audience a disservice. So it's that pushing for honesty and pushing for accountability with the money and the platforms that allow all this like out of balance music to come out, you know?
Right. Yeah. But
Well,
I think it's important that you are very clear on what kind of artist you are and who you partner up with, because I think the message, I think if you would have got with a major label, you would have been compressed, and that probably would have frustrated you, right? So I think your partnership with Empire is A1 with the level, they meeting you on the same level, and you just hit and go, because you're very clear. You don't need no A&R, you just need the machine to go behind you. So,
right.
You know, it's important to partner up.
Completely agree for us. Alignment and who you choose to partner with and who you choose to support. You got to remember, somebody said recently, you know, I've never seen these companies create projects without the artists. So as an artist, you have to understand your power as well. Your power to choose, the power of alignment, the power of your circle. You know, I think it's interesting, you know, we've been talking a little bit about how, you know, creatively now you may have been used to having co-writing sessions in person, you know, getting together, going to the studio. Now creativity has to happen in this moment over Zoom. You know, I know there's a lot of adaptation, you know, where, you know, you're having to figure out how to still say these same messages, how to still be impactful, how to still have a voice in these unusual circumstances through these unusual mediums. And so there's so much that we need to, and by the way, in the comments, I'm hearing that they're already asking for a part 2 of this series. There's so many amazing voices, so many amazing perspectives. And I know that everybody's thoughts are a little truncated right now because of the time limit that we're on, but
and the 3 million panelists.
Conversation. And what'd you say, Major?
And the 3 million panelists, because we passionate. We got some.
Well, I think we did a good job. We pretty much allowed everyone to kind of have a specific moment of the conversation. And Jay, I would like to sort of summarize one last question. We are looking close for time, guys, and there's 2 things we really want to make sure that we get your perspective on. If you guys would give me that luxury to just ask these questions, I'll do one, and then, you know, Jay's going to close us with our final question. I think one of the things that, just summarizing some of the questions that were coming from the chat room, you know, one of the things that we can't open up this can of worms exactly in this room now, but we're talking about responsibility to culture, right? We're in the care for the culture segment. And the ways that most recently the community, a lot of you elected leaders, or a lot of you that represent the rap, R&B, and reggae genres, have taken responsibility of the culture in your hands, have been aiding or helping the Recording Academy and making some adjustments to things of note and things that matter, particularly how some of the categories within the awards process have changed. And I don't want to get into a deep dive about why those changes were made, and we do have someone speaking from awards later. And in our part two, I think we can have a deeper dive about the changing of categories. But I do want to ask at least the question that's at the core of that. Why should we be called urban? Is that a word that we want to own? Is that a word that we feel like has outdated us? Or is that a word that is still, that creates opportunity for us to continue to sort of like matriculate in these old institutions? I'm just presenting all of the different talking points. Recently, all of the different talking points have been, there have been people that have been on the side of like, keep urban. There have been people that have been on the side of dump urban. I'd love to hear from at least 2 or 3 of you about
and definitely that. Ivan. Ivan definitely jump in on this one too, because I know.
Yeah, let Ivan.
Yeah, Ivan was instrumental. We made that change here at the Recording Academy. Removed urban from the urban contemporary category, and I know Ivan was one of the co-authors of that proposal. So I'm sure his insight on this is going to be important for us to hear too.
Can I give a little context before you go, Ivan?
Sure.
I remember when the category got the name urban, because before that we had Black music and other things, but urban came when urban, like Vibe magazine, a lot of great things about Vibe, but urban was introduced around that time, and it was introduced in part so that it would be broader than Black, and it worked for a long time. But in that same way that we are, we've been called a lot of things, and after a while you kind of, well, that's what we're called, that's just what it is. It hasn't been urban that long, but in everybody's mind it's urban, and urban was making it inclusive of more than Black music, and sort of taking it out of the power of Black people. But it's been for so long that a lot of people don't even remember. So Ivan, go ahead.
Well, to your point, I think the intent has been diluted, and depending on the context that you really you look at it through, right? You have 2 separate conversations. You have an academic conversation, which is what's specific to the Recording Academy, and then you have a more creative economy centered conversation, which is how we've seen this dialogue take place in the music industry amongst executives who are on the fence, whether you want to continue calling the music the urban genre, or you want to do something more specific to Black music. And I think when we look at the Academy, let's speak on that. I think when we chose the name Urban Contemporary, we were trying to be as inclusive and being as aware as we could of the sensibilities that were part of the R&B umbrella in certain genres that were subgenres actually within the R&B diaspora, right? If I could use that term. And we knew that to be able to adapt and future-proof this category, and the sentiments being what they've been over the past 2 years or so, we had to think towards the future and pivot. And we look at how R&B was becoming a super progressive genre while preserving the legacy of what the genre is. So the prudent thing to do was to preserve R&B album, or I'm just speaking on an academic level right now, preserve what that album represents while ushering in a new category that will be as inclusive as it has been, but at the same time be an amalgamation of all the things that were expanding the genre and actually moving it forward. And when we did that, it just coincided with what we've seen over the past months. We had the civil unrest and people protesting and rightfully addressing a lot of the things that have been perceived as tools of supremacy. And when that actually coalesced into this one energy, you started having this dialogue where folks were not as receptive to the idea. And I think a lot of it was because of what the potential pitfalls were in terms of what that label structure would be, what we're gonna be. If you're someone who's been working in the urban department and your primary specialized genre is rap music, and now you dissolve what that urban genre is. So what happens to your position? What happens to your job as an executive? Then that means it's given to another department. So I think what that conversation started was not necessarily, do we call this urban or do we not call it urban? But to me, what it invited was a much broader dialogue of equity. And when you look at the record labels and how they view urban music, it's a monolith. Everything, just throw it in there. You know, it'll sort itself out. And I think that is a huge disservice to the culture. If you want to serve the culture, allow people to be specialized in those genres. If you have someone who's a specialist in rap music, create a rap music department. You have someone who's a specialist in soul music, create a soul R&B music department or reggae or things of that nature. And to me, the equity is creating more opportunities and creating more, a much broader conversation to allow us to have more ownership of what the sensibilities in our culture are. And I think when you try to distill that into an either or type of scenario, you perpetuate a lot of the things that we've been dealing with. And I think urban is not necessarily the argument or the hill we should be dying on, because it's a much, much broader conversation about having equality within the construct of the record label and the music economy.
I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think those titles segregate everything. Segregation inside the academy, industry, whatever. And I'm gonna take a page out of my boy No ID. He was on the panel the other day. Like, then get rid of pop. Our music is pop. I say our music is popular.
Period.
So that's a conversation in its own. Like, what is pop?
Friends, we also know the urban conversation right here is a whole other panel.
Oh, yes. Man, he got. I was bubbling. I know. Latitude. I'm seeing everybody.
I know. Everybody. I see everybody kind of warming up.
Thank you, Bobby.
You know, everybody's warming up. I also.
Everybody have fixed their clothes now.
I'd be remiss not to shout out Len Brown. Also, you guys will hear from him later, but he's done a lot of work in the community and working to help usher in some of these changes in these genres. It's an ongoing conversation. That's the beauty in changes at the Recording Academy as well. We only want to be representative of what's actually happening real time in the industry. However, there's a process to make change. So if there are things that need to be changed, if there are things that need to be addressed, reach out to us. There's a proposal process. There's a way to have a voice. There's a way to make a change, to make an impact, and to have a voice in this organization. It's very real and it's very possible. So shout out to Len, shout out to Ivan, shout out to Kokai, Chris McClenny, all the co-authors of that proposal. Great work. We're gonna now do our last question.
Last question, guys.
Feel like we could all just keep going, but I want to start with Lettucey. The question is for everybody. We really kind of want everybody to go around and give us a brief answer, 1, 2, 3 words if you can, just for the sake of that. What can we be doing right now as the Recording Academy? We are in this with you. Understand that we are in the trenches with you. We are not industry adjacent. We are a part of this community and we try to provide community, but we are nothing without our members. We're nothing without your voices. We want this moment to be an opportunity for you all to tell us what we can do, how we can serve you better in this moment, and what are your expectations of the Recording Academy right now. We're going to take that feedback back to our teams, back to our departments. We want to hear from you. We want to serve you. So everybody just take a moment and let us know what your expectations of the Academy are in this moment and how we can be a better service specifically to these genre communities.
I think I would like to see I would like our community to do better. The community of R&B and reggae and whatever, all of us here. This is the start to me of us having dialogue together and creating a community where we can talk to one another and say, hey, can you help me promote this? Or we need something where we're actually talking. We all know each other, but not really. And we need to know each other. We need more of that, more of this, having dialogue. And then we need the Recording Academy to represent all of us. Yes. On all of your platforms, major, minor, diminished, whatever. We need to be represented everywhere. Black music is everywhere. Represent us, show our faces, not just the 5 people you keep putting up there.
It's not on the pre-show.
Come on, Fuzzy, you my new best friend.
I'm just saying.
But come on, we
need a bigger seat at the table.
Come on.
Talk to us.
Add to us. I'm blessed and humbled to be a co-chair on the advocacy committee. And it is one of my favorite to talk to all of us in the Recording Academy, not just the LA chapter, but seeing all of us do the work. So let's continue to do the work and communicate with each other, support one another. Recording Academy, post everybody, not just who's popular, who's in. Showcase the legends too. We need their voices as well. We're missing a whole group of people that aren't represented in our academy. Let's do better. We have it. We have access to everyone. Let's showcase music, all music, but especially Black music, because you've ignored it to the fault for business. Let's do better.
Thank you so much. We will. Thank you so much. Let us see. Melanie.
I had to unmute myself. My feelings were speaking much louder earlier on, so I didn't want to overshadow. Lettucey, thank you so much for saying that. I think, of course, representation matters. I think we see that. I think this is a great start. I think having these conversations, Jeriel, we've had a few conversations now as far as panels about initiatives that we can be creating, really, to keep the community talking about what the community is looking for. And, I won't go over what Lettucey said. I 100% agree. Lettucey, pre-show, urban, all of it. I mean, it's a deep hole we can go into. But specifically, I think right now, it would, be very helpful for the community of creatives to feel that there is some initiative being taken to figure out how we are going to sustain the industry of music moving forward. If we are never able to do shows, if we are not able to attend Grammys, what does this look like? A lot of people's livelihood is dependent on this. And I think that there's enough community and enough people of us that are all experiencing this same level of what does my future in music look like, that we have a responsibility to each other to create something that will allow us to sustain in a pandemic as the industry changes, as boxes and constructs get broken down. I think the beautiful thing that we have right now is the opportunity to dismantle everything that does not work for us and continue to create something that will support and sustain us, especially as Black artists and especially in Black music.
Thank you so much. D Smoke.
Man, you know what? I feel like the freshman in the room in regards to how the Academy can help. So I'm gonna just go ahead and echo Lettucey and Melanie's sentiments in that, paying attention to not just these overarching categories and really getting to know the culture and acknowledging, representing, and awarding the culture for who our heroes are. There have been some major mishaps, some dropped balls in some years, and I saw somebody post. I don't even know if I should say this, but I saw somebody post about a major dropped ball, and I don't know how those things come about, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sit this one out and say I've said enough.
You're part of the conversation.
Listen, you're part of the conversation. Listen, your perspective is important. Your perspective is important. Your optics are important. We know how we can sometimes be perceived, but that's why we're doing things like this. We want to open the curtain. We want to invite you in. We want you to have a seat at the table. So thank you, freshmen. We also have some seniors on here too, but we appreciate you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your voice. Thank you for your answer. I'm gonna pass it over to Major.
I'm a sophomore, but I'm a fan of that freshman though. Real talk, I would say give me a Grammy. I'm joking, sorta. I would actually say, I would really like to see some honest multicultural inclusion in the representation, in the decision making, and also the recognition in our industry. So yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cosign.
No, thank you.
Amplify our voices. Amplify our voices. When you see artists that may not be the most popular artists, help them get on the radio because they can't get on the radio. You know, whatever resources you guys have to put behind the voices that speak to what the Grammy stands for, amplify our voice. When you see these artists kind of popping out and they need support, be that support. We've listed a gazillion different things that we need. We need some healthcare. We need mental health awareness. Don't ask, just come right in and amplify.
Awesome. Thank you. Conversation about radio is for another day as well. Definitely hear you. Shout out to the advocacy team. And Ivan.
I would like to see the Academy amplify the value of the arts and culture as a whole. I was a part of a campaign here in Philly called Philly Culture United, over the past week, where the mayor's budget, the proposed budget due to the COVID-19 pandemic, just totally zeroed out the amount of funds going to the arts and culture, which, you know, impacted the creative art, the creative economy. And when we were having a conversation, we started seeing that when they deem that it's time to preserve things that are essential, one of the first things that goes is the arts and the creative economy. And I think that we're hearing a common sentiment being when everyone speaks, which is how do we sustain ourselves and maintain during this pandemic? And I think the Academy is in a unique position and has a duty to the broader music community to really advocate and fight on a much larger scale to preserve who we are as creators and as music makers and taxpayers. You know, we have to feed our families. We have to, you know, support our communities and things of that nature. And I think that if we can figure out a way to stamp who we are culturally as music creators, it will go a long way in bringing back some value into all of us collectively as part of the ecosystem.
Thank you, Ivan. Appreciate it.
Can I jump back in real quick? I apologize.
Go ahead.
I would actually like to see the Academy lead an initiative to get arts back in schools. That would be like really interesting.
So
if y'all could be like, you know, we're pushing with the major inner city schools, start with the Crenshaws, the Inglewoods, the Westchesters, the Torrances, you know what I'm saying? That would be so dope to watch.
Don't forget Dorsey.
Oh, you real Inglewood. You really Inglewood.
You know, once I hit Inglewood and Crenshaw, everything else got blurry for me.
I feel you.
But no, listen.
Awesome, D Smoke. On it. We'll take that message back. Harriet.
You know, I spent a year traveling around the country with Prince on his Welcome to America tour. And
that's a bar.
Oh.
Yeah, just drop it.
Drop the bar.
And,
pick it up.
And sat and talked to him hour after hour after hour. And what I learned from him was what a visionary he was. He could see all the way to the end in a blink and wonder why we weren't there yet. But he also could blaze through his vision to see the path to get there. And what I think that we all can do is to find our vision, find the vision that brings us together, and then be willing to stand up for what it is, because he did it again and again and again. And I think for you guys, you know, you are in the room when many of us are not. And when you're in the room, you cannot be a bystander. You got to stand up and share the vision and be willing to hold their feet to the fire, whoever they are. And sometimes they look like us. And I think if community occurs like this, and nobody wants to get off the call because we're together. You know, I'm sure the people watching don't want this to end because we're together and we feel the love and we feel the connection. So don't let the connection go. Keep us together, because then you have power in togetherness. And when you are in the room fighting the fight, you know you're not alone. And that is something that I learned from him. He had the vision and he was so strong about it. You know, he stood up against all kinds of things that are happening now. And he was right. So what do we stand for? What do we need? Let's share that and share that wisdom with you. And you take it back to the academy and say, look, this is what we need. The time is now. Don't pimp us anymore. You know, support us, honor us as we honor our culture.
The pimp a butterfly.
Awesome.
I get it now.
Thank you so much, Harriet. Thank you. Noted. And next we'll have Thea.
So I would say to the Academy that you can shape this moment. And I think that's true of every artist on here and every artist beyond here. Like, I want us to all know how possible it is for us to shape this moment and not let it shape us. I think to do that in terms of the Academy, you need to shift to a Black model. And I think Tunde gave us a Black model today. We've used a white model, the model based on white capitalism and patriarchy for however long this thing has been in existence. And this is a moment to consider shifting to a Black model that centers Black values, which included, I'm just pulling from what Tunde said, community. It included wellness. It included looking at your artist as a holistic person. It included recognizing, oh, this person's craft improves when they feel better. So there's really no excuse now. Like, there's an actual tangible model and it's Black. And like every other successful movement in this country forward, they were Black too. So we need to consider the fact that we already have the blueprint. We've always had the blueprint, not just here, but in every area of this country's development, including ancestral technology and technology that they use right now. And consider, let's look at people like that, not as an exception, but as the model. Hold it up to the light, give everybody a blueprint on how to use it and how to apply it. And then there's no reinventing of the wheel. We need to shift the model.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thea.
My pleasure.
I think Tunde had to jump. The senator, she had to jump as well, but we're going to have Fuzzy. Fuzzy, can you close us out and let us know how we can support culture?
I feel like the Academy, we just need to respect our culture and have us. It's like one of those things where we don't want to feel like we're asking for permission. It's like, this is our profession. This is our voice. You understand? We know what the hell we're talking about. So get out our way. If I can say that, that means that's inside the Academy. That's on TV. That's even with the Music Cares program. You guys are doing a dynamite job, but that needs to be funded more for our culture and our community. So I think you just get out y'all way. And when I say y'all, I mean the one that's in the Academy, Jerry L, Lynn, Q, Britt, like, let you guys have a voice and hear you guys out. And if it's something that you guys are passionate, we won't have as many Jay-Z's and Snoop Dogg saying, fuck the Grammys. So I'm gonna end on that.
Wow.
Thanks, William.
No, I appreciate it, Fuzzy. Noted. Thank you everyone for your closing answers. Passing it back to you, Kiana. I know we have to move on to the next segment, but
no, I just want to say, Jeriel, we do have to move on, and like has been communicated, we don't want to. Let's just be very honest.
As a newly elected governor, Kiana, just know that I'm gonna work. I'm gonna put in some work for this.
We'll see.
Part two. We need a part two.
There will absolutely be a part two, and I want to like echo what all of you have said. I appreciate the candidness. That was like my number one request to you guys. We were about to jump on live is to do that. And Fuzz, I love you as the ending for that level of candidness.
Ashe.
Ashe. But I think I will say this, hopefully you guys will also leave with feeling like, what this moment is and what Care for the Culture meant. It was not by chance. It was not something thrown upon us. It literally is a prime example of exactly what you're asking for, right? It was listening to the creators, listening to the professionals. It was sparked in a moment of high need and high profile losses, particularly in these cultures. And it was activated by those that you've named, Fuzzy, that include Jeriel and myself, that heard you, believed you, and then it was championed by those that do sit at a higher level within the organization that understood it was important, right? So we are going to kind of get into like some information about the Recording Academy a little bit. We're going to hear from Lynn, who a lot of have mentioned about the awards process a little bit, as well as two other champions within the rap and R&B work group that we have as within the company. And that includes, and I'll get into those introductions later, but before then, I just want to say thank you. And Ashe, and group hug, and heart love.
Thank you all.
Good.
All of the above, because we love you guys. Honestly, this was exactly what we hoped for. Jeriel, you were an amazing co-host.
Right on, brother.
Thanks,
And a
Jeriel.
supporter behind the scenes.
Kiana, thank you. Thank you for including me. But thank you to all of our panelists. I want to say a very special thank you to the Recording Academy staff and team that has worked so hard on this. Shout out Valicia, our new Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, who's come in doing great work right out the gate. And we are trying to move this organization forward, making sure that our culture is always respected, represented, and that our voices are heard. Thank you so much again, Kiana, for including me. I really appreciate it. Congratulations to you on this incredible program. I hope I can be a part of part two. So thank you.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Next.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
We're going to say bye to our panelists now.
Salute.
I'm going to salute all of the above. Shout out Callie. I can't help it. I'm a West Coast girl. And we love you guys. Thank you guys so much for being on today. Thank you for your time. And as we sort of like segue into the next section, we're going to have a little bit of a Recording Academy moment. And so I'd like to bring to the room, I'd like to bring Brittany Presley, our membership manager for the Los Angeles chapter, Lynn Brown, our rap, R&B and awards manager, and Ashley Thomas, our senior membership and project manager for Philadelphia chapter.
Hey everybody, thanks Kiana.
Thanks Kiana.
That's gonna be a tough act to follow here, but we got this, y'all. We got this. Brittany, I am part of the LA chapter. I'm just gonna give you some quick need to knows about membership. So Academy membership is by invitation. We're actually getting ready to invite our membership class of 2020. Those invitations are slated to go out on July 9th, and we're really excited about welcoming in a brand new, diverse group of music creators and professionals into the Academy to help us do all of the work that was actually discussed during the panel. So if you are not a member and you're interested in joining, you can visit grammy.com/join. You'll see the outline of the membership process, needing 2 recommendations, being able to submit your profile. All that needs to be submitted by March 1st, and then you'll be able to go ahead and submit for membership consideration for the 2021 year. And once you are a member, there are plenty of ways to get involved and stay involved, just kind of based on what your passion is and what you want to do with your membership. So I'm going to kick it over to the beautiful Ashley Thomas to talk more about that.
Hey, thanks, Britt. So like Kiana mentioned, I'm Ashley, the Senior Membership and Project Manager in the Philly chapter. So I just want to tell you about a couple key things because we are a membership organization. So that means the work that we do is really informed by our members, right? And so very important date, August 12th is our advocacy day. It's moved up from October, right? So it's going to be over the summer this year. Sign up, get involved. Registration starts tomorrow. So when you get that link, register, just because A lot of our work that we do through advocacy directly affects the pockets of music creators, right? And so that's what we're all talking about: equity, getting what we're owed, being fair. So make sure you sign up for that. The other part of it is voting. We're hearing that on a national stage, but it also applies to locally here within the Recording Academy. You want to vote for your local elected leaders. You heard Major talk about being a governor, right? Members vote for the governors. You want to make sure you have people representing you that are sitting around the table. And you also want to make sure that you're voting in the awards process. So we have these conversations every February, right? When we look at the results. And it's a direct result of our members being involved in awards committees when they're asked, and our voting members actually voting and submitting their ballots at the end of the year. So I just want to kick it over to my partner in crime in the rap, R&B, and reggae outreach world, because we work on that nationally, Lynn Brown.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you to all the panelists as well, because clearly we wouldn't have a job to do if it wasn't for them, and vice versa. Because right now we're in the midst of, another awards season. We're getting more submissions. This first round is going to end July 6th. The next round starts July 15th. So it's pretty much rapid nonstop between now and pretty much to the show in January next year. So, but I mean, all we're here to do is help. All we're here to do will be pillars of the community. And as Ashley said as well, I mean, we want to respect the culture, which is why we're the heads of this group, which is why we try and work with the many different faces within the academy and many different artists and faces within the music industry as a whole, because we realize that it's going to take a lot more than just 2-3 people within a building to actually make and keep change coming. So I feel pretty good about it. I'm happy for it. I know that we're going to keep making these strides and keep respecting the culture, as Fuzzy said, because that's the only thing we can do as arbiters of this music business and everybody else that's involved.
And just to touch on that, Lynn, I do want to say for our current members, if you are planning on submitting product for the 63rd Grammy Awards, just make sure your membership is active by July 15th. And then for incoming members, they would just need to make sure that they accept their invitations by July 15th. And September 15th is the membership deadline for our voting members to actually be able to vote in the Grammy Awards process.
Don't forget.
Yes, please don't forget to vote. Ashley and Lynn, thank you guys so much. I always love working with you guys. Really appreciate the work that you do, and thank you for leading that group. As being a part of it, I really do kind of look to you guys as like my little mentors, even though we're like the same age, but I love you all. So I'm gonna kick it back to Kiana.
Hey guys. So thank you very much, Lynn, Ashley, and Brittany. We appreciate you guys. I too enjoy being a part of the work group that you guys lead, which is a collective of different departments and people that just feel really passionate about making that engagement for these rap, R&B, and reggae genre communities very real and very comprehensive and accurate. So we appreciate, you all for the work that you do. And we wanted you guys to see their faces because they are part of the front lines of our wonderful team. So in closing, I just have a few thank yous. I want to say thank you to Harvey Mason Jr., our current interim CEO and president, and the chair of the National Board of Trustees. He's been an excellent leader in this time, and we really appreciate his voice and how he continues to support the staff and the leadership. Also, a big shout out to our Recording Academy senior staff, our regional teams, who are very influential in making sure this program could happen. Also, our elected leaders, many of them you saw here today, and many others who are not necessarily within the genre, but are in support of the genre getting the prominence and the work and the attention that it needs now. So we're very thankful for those elected leaders who also work and volunteer to help you guys. And then lastly, my fellow executive directors across the nation for your vision and your pioneering leadership, for supporting programs like Care for the Culture, for allowing us to all come together on a national platform and be able to have this conversation and to make sure that your members were able to experience this as well. We thank you for that. And I thank you guys in general, from everyone within membership and industry relations that have been a part of specifically this program. You guys know who you are. Those that are in awards, those that are in social media, the digital team, our Music Care staff. A special thank you, a big thank you to you for being a part of this wonderful program and for making sure it came off with a hitch. We appreciate you guys. And the biggest thanks that I have to give couldn't go to any other team other than the Los Angeles chapter staff. Those are my girls. I love them. My women in the fight with me. They do an amazing job. So shouts out to Jay Messina, to Brittany, to Nicole, and to Patricia for the long hours and the dedication. You guys are all truly rock stars, as well as our members and our leaders. We all appreciate your work, and we're so grateful for your level of dedication. To the viewing audience and to those that are on Facebook Live, thank you for your questions. A lot of them got answered within the natural flow of the conversation. Thank you to the questions that help us to shape the final question. I hope you guys got your answers. Don't worry. We are also hoping for a part 2. And so I want to end by saying I hope you've enjoyed your wonderful panel today, and that the open-hearted conversation that was shared offered you some insight and some tools on how you can care for yourselves, as well as think about the future work that we can all do together as part of the culture, as creators, as professionals, and as a community of music and music supporters. These are changing times, but we're able to get through them with the support of our family members within the Grammy organization, and particularly to bring the support and aid that is needed to those of the rap, R&B, and reggae genre communities. I invite you to join us another time. As early as next week, we will be live again on Facebook for the LA chapter's new program that's called Stay In, Come Out, Let's Talk. We'll have additional conversations of like-minded peers speaking to their specific experience in the music industry. And these conversations are being led by the LA chapter's leadership that identifies as LGBTQ+ or our allies. So this program will serve the reconnaissance mission of how the Recording Academy can continue to support the needs of the music community within our collective Grammy family. It's been an amazing evening. I wish you guys nothing but the best, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us. Good night.